Hello and welcome back, my partners in crime. Welcome back to Murder Analysed for another true crime. Now today's crime is another unsolved case. Now this case again is an arson case, different from the Emily Savini case. This is an arson though, which when we talk about arson we talk about the different types of arsonists out there. Now this one is probably best described by what they call an arson attack by a person of what they say is a hero syndrome. So this is the case of the Penhallow Fire Hotel, and it is suspected arson. Now this occurred in August 2007 in Newquay in Cornwall. 3 people were killed in this, and it was reported actually as one of the worst hotel fires in the United Kingdom in 40 years. Now the reason for this is probably the structure of the hotel itself, and also the fire escape was wooden, right, which really helped with the fire, I suppose, too, and also helped stop getting people out. So the hotel was well known for holidaymakers ranging from families to elderly residents. That's an important fact in this case, where it's really a lot of these people were elderly residents. It was built in the island crescent between 1912 and 1917. So you can tell the structure, as I say, was old, the building was old, and probably, and as we will go through this case you will see, that it was not maintained to the standards of what hotels should have been brought up to when fire regulations and everything within this time. I think, and it had been altered more than once, and the building had a wooden structure, especially the fire escape was wooden, which is a no-no when we're talking about fire and wood do not go together. So really when you look at the structure and the time this building was built, you also look at the sort of only, I suppose, escape route other than the front door and stuff on this hotel, really then, I suppose, aided in what really happened with this fire. And you can see by the photos of the fire, it was extreme, it was intense, it just went up, and luckily more people, I think there was about 80 residents and staff within this hotel at the time of the murder, at the time of the arson attack on this building. And so really we were very lucky, I think, that only 3 people were killed. Now the police concluded that the fire had been started in the by an intentional act, right, meaning arson, right? So someone deliberately set fire to this property, this building with all these people in it. Their intention was arson. Now when we look, and I've spoken about arson before, when we look at reasons why people do arson, there are 3 main categories that we are looking at. We are looking at people that revenge, and I think that was ruled out as a type of arson attack on this property. We're also talking about people that are pyromaniacs or whatever they are, or just really fascinated with fire. And as I said before, it's about 6%, if that, really, people were either with mental health or some psychological orders that would do this sort of fire. That also was ruled out. The reason that was ruled out because the suspect in this case really comes down to what we call this hero syndrome, and that is an arsonist that does this sort of fire for the praise. They want to be seen as someone that has helped, saved people, been part of this fire. That's what they want, the accolade of it. And actually when we look at the figures and the research which done on this type of arsonist, 80% of actually fires, smaller fires, are actually caused by fire officers themselves. Some are quite young, and usually they're the newer recruits into the fire service, and they seem to start small fires and then want to be able to put them out, use the skills that they've been taught, get the accolade from their peers and the people they work with and stuff like that. So when we're looking at this hero syndrome, there's lots of evidence on that, and these are taken from American figures, but also England has the same thing. We are looking at a suspect here in this case, and as I said, with arson it can't always be proved, right, because the evidence is not there because it's been burnt, as with many things when we look at arsonists. Now this girl that we're looking at in this case is suspected of starting this fire, was well known between I think 2002 and 2010 as an arsonist within this area, and her name was Karen Pedley. Now she was a serial arsonist. So on the night of the 18th of April 2007, shortly after midnight, the power was cut to this building. It was reported shortly after that then that the fire alarm started to go off. Now there was smoke seen coming from the building, and it is believed that the fire started in the hotel's drinks bar storage area, and then it spread through this building, as again because of the structure and the way it was built, this building. A 999 call was made to Cornwall Fire Brigade Fire Control at 12:17 a.m, so just after midnight. Everything then was mobilised, right, because you have this hotel now, because it has around 80 people in it, including, you know, hotel residents and staff, and of course they're trying to evacuate this place out to save lives as quickly as possible, because in this sort of building, as I said, this fire spread so fast. It was just going through. If you've ever seen a fire where you have so many flammable stuff like curtains and sofas and gosh knows what else, and the structure of how this was built, this fire took hold extremely fast, probably faster than what the arsonist thought it would. So the first sort of fire brigade, or the crew, got there within about 4 minutes of that phone call being made. By that stage, as I said, this fire now was raging. All right, it has spread. It was, I think at its peak of the blaze, there was 100 firefighters that were fighting this. The flames were about 30 foot high. Some guests woke to the sound of the alarm, and of course, you know, started then to leave themselves if they could, but it was the people that were more elderly that really couldn't get out of this building. Other reports that the fire alarm could not be heard on the 3rd floor of the hotel, and being hampered really by the evacuation due to the staircase and obstacles left on the staircase. Now here we have breaches now of health and safety laws. So when we have fire alarms that are meant to be heard, they're meant to be loud, and they're meant to go through all of the areas of a hotel or any place of business, you're opening up yourself up here for really serious legal issues. Plus, because you need this in place because you want these people to be able to get out, and you want to save as many lives as possible in a fire. Then we have on the staircase, we have stuff on staircases which has hindered people getting out from this building as well. Obstacles left in hallways and stuff. Now witnesses and guests also spoke of the shortcomings of the fire officials as the fire brigade arrived with ladders not long enough to reach certain areas of this building. So this is where later on, as we go through this case, you will see lots of people have been, or there's been issues with lots and lots of people and authorities throughout this whole case. It was also reported by the people that were evacuating out that some of the fire engines didn't even have ladders attached to them. Not even the ones that did have, that couldn't reach the 3rd floor guests on this hotel. Some literally fire engines came with just hoses, no ladders, to a hotel. You know, quite a large building here. So there was some really bad things going on here from start to finish. Now in 2007, Devon and Cornwall Police stated that they would treat the fire as a major crime, right, which it was, because it was undoubtedly known at this point that you had an arsonist anyway that was quite active in this area. And then that really, when you look at how this fire started, you know, from the evidence that was being gathered, that it was really speculated that it was an arson attack on this building. So there's some big issues here. So major crimes now are looking into this, because when you have fires like this and you have people that die inside these fires from someone who is an arsonist, it is really an issue that you have to get these people quite quickly to make sure they don't go on and do anything else. These sort of arsonists, what we're talking about here, are a little bit like serial killers. The more they do, the more they love it, and then they go on and they go on and they go on because they're really enjoying what they're doing. It's part of it. Now, in this case, it's this girl that we're talking about, but in other arson attacks, and especially in America, where a lot of investigation has gone into some serious arson attacks where fires have been started, they even class it as sexually motivated crimes, because they found evidence that the arsonist has enjoyed himself that much that they have left evidence there. So there's a lot that go into arsonists. I've said before about arsonists. Arsonists have a very low IQ level, between about 70 and 90. Really, on average, that's what it looks like they have, and that's on the research done. But as I said, in many of these cases that I do about arson, arson is such a difficult case to prove because the evidence is not there. So lots of these people do get away with it, and so the research itself into arson is limited by that fact alone. So by January 2008, police now announced that the fire was being treated now as suspicious, and the deaths were now therefore potential cases of murder. And this is now when this case then takes on such a bigger investigation, because now we are looking for someone that has murdered and is a serious arsonist. As I say, there was about 80 members of staff and guests that were able or managed to get out of this building alive, but there were 3 people that were killed and 5 that were also injured quite badly, actually. So initially officials were aware of 1 fatality, 4 being unaccounted for, and the 4 others in hospital. So guest Peter Hughes, he was a science teacher, Mr. Hughes, science teacher, and he was aged 43 and he was from Staffordshire. He died as a result of falling from the 2nd floor window. He couldn't get out, and the smoke and the fire and the heat of this building, in the end he either jumped or fell from that 2nd floor window. Mr. Hughes' mother, now Monica, she was aged 86, also died in the blaze. And she died along with an 80-year-old Jean Harper, who is also from Staffordshire. So, we're talking about people here that died a terrible death. They either died of flames, burning, really in intense heat, or through smoke insulation that really, when they inhaled the smoke, it would be burning, right? It would be black, thick, dark, toxic smoke that is burning, and it would burn as it went down. And I think this is probably why Peter Hughes probably got so close to that window to breathe, and maybe that's why he fell out of that window. So listen, we've had lots of criticism here in this case. Okay, we've got Cornwall Fire and Rescue Services, the CFRS, were criticised on how this incident was handled. It was reported that it was only 1 fire applicants that really could be mobilised in Newquay at that time due to the shortage of the crews. 1 appliance was also sent as a backup, was drawn into the surrounding stations and stuff, though they tried. But, I don't think anyone knew, or was prepared for this sort of fire. As I said, it was a fire, one of the biggest hotel fires in this country in 40 years. But it just shows that this area wasn't ready for this sort of a fire. I think things have obviously changed since then. So of course there was an inquest into this fire and also into the deaths of these people that were affected, and also the staff members and everyone, the guests that were affected within this crime. So they discovered that there was factors were seen the case against the owners of the hotel, factors of the fire of poor response. So the owners were an issue because of things, as I said before, breach of health and safety, things left in corridors, you know, fire alarms not working right, people didn't hear them, all this sort of stuff. So the standard of really management of this property was not there. And this really, when you think about it, all started with someone that just wanted to start a fire, and then people lose their lives, and lots of things are highlighted in this area of what went wrong. So let's go on now to the prime suspect, I suppose, the arsonist. Again, this is unproven, right, because there is no evidence, but really it is the police's prime suspect in this case, and this is this Karen Pedley. Now, when she was aged 10, she was hailed a hero because a fire in her home started and she woke her parents and saved their lives, right, at the age of 10. Now, this is where this hero syndrome sort of comes from, because to tell you the truth, when we look at these sort of cases, I'm going to be quite blunt here, when we look at Karen Pedley's life, this was probably the highlight of her life, right? She had won a trip on the Concorde, she had been hailed a hero, you know, the accolade was there, her parents really, you know, community, everything hailed her as a hero. And this is where we believe that this hero syndrome comes from. It's when these sort of people who sometimes, as I said, have got quite low IQs, they are sometimes withdrawn in their self and stuff, and then something happens to them like this, right, where it builds them up, they're put on a pedestal, they love it, the attention, and love it because they probably got no attention, and probably Karen didn't get much attention as a child. When you look at arsonists that have this sort of hero syndrome, they are people that are lacking in something else, right? And they want to relive that feeling, that, you know, feeling of the happiest times in their life, things that stuck in their mind. And when we talk about children's experiences, this is one now that can start them off really in the long run, in the end, I suppose, to be some of the worst arsonists or the most dangerous arsonists that we know, because they're constantly after that feeling of euphoria. You know, look at me, I've won, and you'll see by the photos, just smiling, grinning at a 10-year-old child. Of course she would be. But we actually don't know how the fire started in the parents' property when that girl was 10. Children are well known for playing with fire. They're fascinated with it. Most of them grow out of it. So we don't know. I'm not saying that Karen started the fire in her parents' house and then saved them from this fire. I mean, listen, my own girl Leanne, I remember she set a fire once and come running upstairs and said, Ma, I was just playing with it. She was playing with fire and she chucked something in the bin and it went up, but she woke us up. She certainly didn't get praise for it, I'll tell you that. But when you have someone like Karen Pedley, who is this young child of 10 that has saved her parents from a fire, been hailed a hero by her parents, the local community, been put on the Concorde, gave them a flight on the Concorde, this is the pinnacle of her life. And now she wants to relive that and relive that feeling over and over again. And that's what makes her really a serial arsonist. Now you've got to think, how do we know about Karen Pedley? Right, well, Karen Pedley was given 14 life sentences. Now, this fire-obsessed care worker, and this is where I'm saying about the relevance between the hotel fire, because it was known to have guests who were elderly in this. Well, Karen used to work as a care worker in a care home with the elderly. Now, a 96-year-old resident in the care home that Karen worked in had a small fire set in her room. Now, again, Karen, through wanting this accolade and stuff like this, probably believed that I'm going to save her, even though she started the fire. I'm going to save this resident from this care home, and I'm going to be held the hero once again. People are going to love me, like me. I'm the hero. I've saved her. But unfortunately for Karen, as for most arsonists, these plans don't go always to plan, do they? Things happen. Like when we are talking about a 96-year-old resident that is sitting in a room that's been set alight. It is the fire, it is the smoke, not the flames, that kill quickly. And so this poor lady died because of this fire. Now it turns out that Karen really was the suspect in this, and it was proven quite quickly that she had done this murder. But as again, she had been up for lots of arson attacks between 2002 and 2010, and this includes this hotel. So Karen Pedley is a very dangerous woman, and the only way to really protect the public against an arsonist like this would be to lock her up for the rest of her life, because there is no way that Karen will ever stop being able to do what she does. She is an arsonist, and she is an arsonist because of this hero syndrome. Something that happened to her when she was a child is now ingrained in her. She wants this feeling, she needs it, and this, what all these fires were started, was because of Karen's want and need to be held the hero, the saviour, to get that moment back from what she lost all them years ago. You know, she will spend a minimum of 27 years in prison. It's not enough, because this girl will never, ever really change. There's no way. There was no way. I think she was 43 actually at the time when she was sentenced for all this. So she had gone through her life now from 2002 to 2010 to be suspected of multiple arson attacks, and now really resulting in deaths. And I think, you know, Glad Road, she died in hospital of the effects of the smoke inhalation following the fire in this 2008 incident that happened. Now listen, this girl is a dangerous girl. Arsonists are dangerous people. They're dangerous. It is a crime that cannot be solved so easily, right? Arson. People know that. We know that there's not enough evidence that, you know, and all the research and stuff that's done around arson is difficult because a lot of the suspects are never caught. But when we look at the profile, Karen started young. She wanted that feeling back. They say it's usually men, actually. Arsons are mainly men. They probably start about 18 to 29. Some are older, depends on what. But when we're talking about this hero syndrome, that's sort of what we're looking at. As I said, firefighters are well known. I think 80% of some of the fires in America was caused by new recruits, fire service, because small fires, but still started on purpose to have this feeling of being needed, the hero, you know, and using also the skills that they have been taught, because fires like this hotel fire luckily don't come around too often. So there's lots of different research, and I'll leave some stuff for you on the end of this video about arson. But with an arsonist, we are looking at someone that their childhood sometimes isn't great. Even if they've got both parents, they may not have a great relationship. They may be loners. They may feel that they don't fit in to society. And so when something like this that happened to Karen when she was 10 sort of changed that for her, and that feeling and, you know, the publicity she got and stuff made her feel worthy of something. But then to try and regain that feeling all the time, it's very difficult, and it's very difficult for these people to maintain that. But they'd start these fires because that's how they get their kicks, I suppose. And if people die, then they die. That's how they look at it. It's very unusual, really, when we talk about having real facts on arson cases. It's difficult. It's difficult. They've only got this prime suspect, which they can't prove for sure she done it because she's never admitted it. But at least she's away for a very long time for other offences that she's done to do with arson. But it does make her the prime suspect because of the hotel itself was known for the elderly to visit, and that was her sort of profile that she liked, her victim, I suppose, that she wanted to save, you know. She was in the area and she's well known as an arsonist between them dates. And so really, could we say it's definitely Karen? Well, no, we can't say it's definitely 100% Karen that's done this crime. But can we say 100% it's not Karen that did this crime? No, we don't know, because the evidence isn't there either way. But in probability, if we look in probability rather than evidence, then the probability that Karen done this crime, this fire, this arson on this hotel that killed these 3 people, then yeah, probability is she probably did do it. Now, it's difficult, isn't it, when we look at people like arsonists to understand what they're thinking. So I'm going to leave some slides on the end of here again which explain more in detail, because I have a lot of students on here that look at law and criminology and stuff, and if you can understand sometimes why people may do stuff, and you can understand when you're looking at arsonists what sort of arsonist you are talking about, it can limit, can't it, you know, your suspect pool. As I said, arson is one of the hardest crimes to prove. So listen, thanks for watching. Till the next time. Bye bye.